Welcome back to the deep dive. I have to be honest with you, when I first picked up the stack of papers we are covering today, I felt a little bit like I was holding a map to a city that I live in but have never actually seen.
That is a very evocative way to put it.
It feels that way.
Yeah.
We are looking at a set of discourses, what in Hebrew are called ma'amarim, that are arguably some of the most foundational texts in Hasidic philosophy. We are talking about the Basi Legani discourses.
Right. And just to orient everyone, we are zooming in on a very specific moment in time. These texts are associated with the 10th and 11th of Shavat.
Which are huge dates.
Monumental. In the Chabad Hasidic calendar, the 10th of Shavat, 1950, is when the previous Rebbe passed away. And then exactly 1 year later, on the 11th of Shavat, the Rebbe formally accepted the leadership.
So this isn't just a philosophy seminar. This is a changing of the guard. This is a moment where the mission statement of an entire movement was defined.
Exactly. And the tradition is to study the discourse Basi Legani, which means I have come into my garden during this time. The Rebbe would expand upon a different chapter of this base discourse every single year.
And the source material we have in front of us, it focuses on the discourses from 1970 and 1971, right?
That's right. So we're getting a very mature, distilled version of these ideas.
And the title itself, it just sets the hook for me. I have come into my garden. It sounds so pastoral. It sounds peaceful.
It does. It evokes a certain tranquility.
But as I read through this, I realized this garden isn't about smelling the roses. It is about a construction project. It's about a battle. And frankly, it answers the biggest question I think any of us can ask. Why are we here?
It really, really does. It goes right to the core.
I mean, think about the classic paradox. We are told God is infinite, God is perfect, God needs nothing.
Yeah.
So if you have everything, why make anything?
It's the first question of all philosophy.
And specifically, why make this whole messy reality? Why create a physical world that is so full of darkness and struggle and confusion and pain?
That is the ultimate question. And usually the answer people settle for is that we are here to escape. We are here to transcend the physical, get through this cosmic obstacle course, and then, get to heaven.
Right. The world is a waiting room.
Yeah.
Or a prison.
But these texts, this deep dive, it just flips that entirely. The hook here is that God isn't looking for a way out of this world. He is looking for a way in.
A way in.
The sources discuss a concept called ta'ava. It's a Hebrew word for a deep, essential desire. The argument is that this physical world, with all its grit and all its resistance, is actually the destination. It's the whole point.
Which is a staggering thought.
Yeah.
That the infinite God wants to move in with us here, in this reality.
Not just visit. Wants a permanent home.
So we have a massive roadmap ahead of us.
Right.
We need to unpack the history of this garden, how God moved out and how he's moving back in. That's our first stop.
Then we have to get into the logic of why there is no logic, the psychology of this divine desire.
Right. And then the mechanics of how we actually build this place, the nuts and bolts of it.
And we are going to get into some really fascinating territory regarding the army of the soul and why our generation, which seems so distracted and confused, is actually given access to spiritual secrets that were hidden from the greatest mystics of the past.
That part about the treasury gave me chills. Seriously.
Yeah.
But let's start at the beginning, section 1, the cosmic real estate project. The text opens with this verse from Song of Songs, Basi Legani. I've come into my garden.
Right. And the Midrash, the ancient commentary, immediately plays with the words. It looks at the word Legani, to my garden, and it says, don't read it that way. Read it as Leginuni.
Leginuni. What does that mean?
That word implies a bridal chamber, a chuppah, a private inner sanctuary. So it's not just a garden, it's the most intimate space.
Wow.
And then the Midrash says something radical. The garden, this bridal chamber, refers specifically to this physical world.
So not heaven, not the world of souls or angels, earth.
Earth, the lowest reality. The text lays out the premise that originally, at the very dawn of creation, the Shechinah, the divine presence, didn't just visit here. It resided here.
It was its primary address.
Its main dwelling. The essence of God was revealed on earth. The physical and the spiritual were perfectly integrated. There was no separation.
That is hard to imagine, considering the world we see in the news. So if the landlord was living here, what happened? Did he get evicted?
In a sense, yes, we evicted him. The text traces a history of withdrawal. It's a narrative of 7 tragic steps. It describes 7 specific generations or sins that caused the divine presence to recoil.
So it wasn't one big explosion. It was a gradual retreat, like a tide going out.
Exactly, step by step. It starts with the tree of knowledge, Adam and Eve. That was the first rupture. The text says that sin pushed the Shekinah from the earth up to the first spiritual firmament, or heaven.
Okay, so God takes one step back. He's still watching, but he's not here in the same way. The intimacy is gone.
Right. Then comes Cain, the murder of Abel. That act of violence pushes the presence from the first heaven to the second.
Another step back.
Then the generation of Enosh, who the text says introduced idolatry, that pushed it to the third. Then the generation of the flood, widespread moral corruption, pushed it to the fourth.
It's like watching a relationship fall apart. Step by step, the distance grows. You can feel the coldness setting in.
It creates a chasm. The Tower of Babel, which was this grand project of rebellion against God, pushes it to the fifth.
Okay.
The people of Sodom, their culture of cruelty and lack of hospitality, push it to the sixth. And finally, the sins of the Egyptians in the time of Abraham, that culture of oppression and idolatry, pushed the divine presence to the seventh firmament.
So we hit rock bottom, or I guess God hit sky high. He is 7 layers removed from reality, as far away as possible.
Exactly. The world became dark. It became what we call nature, a place that seems to run on its own, independent with God. The connection was severed.
But the text doesn't end with the divorce. It talks about the reconciliation, thank goodness.
It talks about the reversal. This is where the concept of the Zadok, the righteous one, comes in. The text lists 7 generations of Zadokim who arose to reverse the damage.
So it's a perfect symmetry.
The perfect symmetry. If 7 sins pushed God away, 7 righteous lives pulled him back down.
It's a cosmic relay race.
Yeah.
Who starts it? Who takes the first baton?
Abraham. Abraham appears in a world that is totally dark, totally idolatrous, and he starts to shine a light. He proclaims the one God. He stands against the entire world. And the text says his merit brought the presence down from the 7th heaven to the 6th.
Okay, so he bridges the first gap. He makes the first move.
Then his son Isaac, through his life of discipline and awe, brings it from the 6th to the 5th.
And Jacob?
Jacob, with his life of truth and study, brings it to the 4th. Then Levi to the 3rd, Kehas to the 2nd, Amram to the 1st.
And that brings us to the 7th, the final runner.
Moses. Moses is the 7th generation from Abraham, and the text quotes this famous principle from the Midrash, all 7ths are beloved.
Now, I want to pause on that phrase. All 7ths are beloved. Is it just because the number 7 is lucky, 7 days of the week, 7 colors in the rainbow? Or is there a function to being 7th?
It's deeply functional. The number 6 represents the work week, the process, the struggle. 7 is Shabbat, its completion. The role of the 7th is to complete the cycle, to ground the circuit.
So Moses' job was different from the others.
Very different. The first 6 were pulling the presence closer. Moses' mandate wasn't just to bring God close. His mandate was to bring the Shekinah from that last first firmament back down to earth, to lock it in, to make it permanent.
And he did that at Mount Sinai with the giving of the Torah?
At Sinai, and then permanently with the Mishkan, the tabernacle. When they built that physical structure in the desert out of wood and gold and animal skins, the verse says, and the glory of God filled the tabernacle.
The garden was open again?
The essence was back. The bridal chamber was reestablished.
Okay, so that's a beautiful history lesson. We broke it and Moses fixed it. But why are we studying this today? I mean, what does this have to do with me in the 21st century? The source material makes a really bold leap here. It says this pattern isn't just history, it's a blueprint for now.
This was the part that really struck me in the discourse. The Rebbe takes this historical cycle and overlays it onto the history of Shabbat Chassidism itself. He identifies the founder, the Alter Rebbe, as the Abraham of a new era.
A new era of what?
The era of revealing the inner soul of Torah, of bringing these deep mystical ideas to the forefront. He was the pioneer.
And if you start counting from the Alter Rebbe.
You count down the leaders. The Alter Rebbe is 1, the Middle Rebbe is 2, the Semek Tzedek is 3. You go all the way down to the previous Rebbe, the 6th Rebbe.
Who is the 6th, which means the Rebbe's generation, and by extension, our generation, all of us listening, is the 7th.
We are the 7th generation. And just like in Moses' time, the text says the task of the 7th generation is unique. The previous generations, the first 6, they did the intellectual heavy lifting. They ascended the mountains. They brought the light down closer. They published the books.
They did the R&D.
Exactly. But the 7th generation, our job is the actualization.
What does that mean practically? Actualization.
It means we have to bring the essence of God into the lowest, most physical aspects of reality. Not just into the holy places like synagogues or study halls, but into the mundane, into our offices, our kitchens, our relationships.
So we have to build the Mishkan in our daily lives.
And the text emphasizes something crucial. In the time of the patriarchs, the work was done by these giant individuals. Abraham did his part, Moses did his. But now, the power to make this dwelling place is given to every single person.
So the Moses energy has been democratized. It's been distributed.
Exactly. We are all deputies in this construction project. We are the ones who have to hammer the final nail.
That puts a lot of pressure on us, but it also gives a lot of meaning to our daily grind. Okay, so that is the what. We are building the garden. But I want to get to the why. This is section 2 of our outline. Why does God want this? Why this whole complicated project?
This is where we have to leave standard logic behind. The text starts by dismantling the usual answers.
Right. It brings up the classic theological reasons for creation, like God is benevolent and you need someone to receive kindness, the king who wants to give.
Right. It's a logical argument. If you are good, you need a recipient. It's in the nature of goodness to be shared. But the Rebbe tears this argument apart in the text. He says, look, if God just wanted to be kind, he could have created spiritual world.
That would have been so much easier.
So much easier. He could have created billions of angels who would just bask in his light and say thank you all day. They would be much better, much more efficient recipients than us.
Yeah, we're not exactly the most grateful recipients. We complain, we suffer. This world is a terrible vessel for pure kindness compared to a paradise.
Exactly. So that reason doesn't hold up. Then there's the second common argument. God wanted to be known, like a king who wants subjects to recognize his power.
Or an artist who wants an audience to appreciate their masterpiece.
But again, the text refutes it. If it's about showing off power like creating something from nothing, yesh miyayin, that happens in the spiritual realms too. Creating an angel is an incredible miracle. You don't need a heavy, gross, physical rock to prove you're the creator. The spiritual worlds would have been a much more appreciative audience.
So if it's not for kindness and it's not for fame, logic is running out of options.
And that is the point. The text concludes that there is no logical reason. The creation of this physical world stems from something deeper, something more primary than logic.
He uses the word tahava.
Yes, ta'a, desire. The key phrase in the whole discourse is, the Holy One, blessed be He, desired to have a dwelling place in the lower worlds.
And there's that great Yiddish catchphrase in text quotes, Oifatava fregt men nit kashas.
On a desire you cannot ask questions.
I love that. It's the ultimate mic drop. It shuts down the whole debate.
It really is. But think about what it means. If I tell you I'm buying a specific house because it's a good investment or it's close to work, we can debate the numbers. We can argue the logic.
Right, we can have a whole discussion about it.
But if I say I'm buying this house because I just want it, it feels like home, you can't argue with me. A desire comes from the essence of who I am. It's not a tool for a goal, it is the goal.
So God created the world not because he needs to, but because he wants to. Full stop.
Yeah.
But the text goes even further. It explains why the physical world satisfies this desire in a way the spiritual worlds can't. And this is where it really bent my brain a little.
It's the paradox of the physical. It's a beautiful, beautiful idea. The text argues that the physical world, precisely because it conceals God, because it's so dark, is the only place where God's essence can be found.
Unpack that for me. Because to me, a rock looks less godly than an angel. My intuition says the spiritual is more divine.
And that's the normal way of thinking. But think about the nature of existence itself. If you ask an angel, do you exist? The angel would say, of course. I exist because God is shining light into me right now. If he stops, I disappear.
It's totally dependent.
The angel is transparent. It knows it is created. It has no self independent of its source.
Okay, it's like a hologram.
Yeah.
It knows it needs the projector to exist.
A perfect analogy. But now look at a rock, or look at the physical universe. It feels solid. It feels undeniable. It screams, I am here. It has what philosophers might call brute existence.
It feels self-sufficient.
It doesn't feel like it needs a creator. It just is. It has this powerful, stubborn isness to it.
It has isness. I like that.
Exactly. And here's the twist. Who is the only true is? Who is the only being that truly exists without a cause, without a reason, just because he is? God. So paradoxically, the physical world's feeling of independent isness is a mirror image, a crude, dark mirror, but a mirror nonetheless of God's own isness. The spiritual worlds reflect God's light, his revelation, his wisdom, his kindness. But the physical world, in its stubborn, heavy silence, reflects God's essence, his atzmos.
That is wild. So the fact that the world ignores God is actually the fingerprint of God's essence.
It's the masked fingerprint. And that is why the dwelling, the daira, has to be here. A home is where you can be yourself, totally unmasked. In the spiritual worlds, God is the creator, the king. He is wearing a title, a role.
He's on the clock.
Right. But in the physical world, hidden inside that brute existence is the essence itself. He wants to be at home here. He wants us to peel back the mask of the rock and reveal that its isness is actually his isness.
We're remodeling reality. We're stripping the layers of paint to show the original beautiful wood underneath.
Beautiful analogy. And that leads us directly to the how, because God isn't going to strip the paint himself. That would defeat the purpose.
Right. The text is very clear that this requires human labor. It cannot be done by magic. If God just zapped the world into holiness, it wouldn't be a physical dwelling anymore. It would just be another spiritual world. It requires us to do the work from the bottom up.
And the text breaks this work down into two specific modes, two tools in our belt, iskafia and ishapcha.
These sound like military tactics.
Yeah.
Let's start with iskafi. What is that?
Iskafia is Aramaic for subduing or bending. This is the defensive game. It's about suppression. It's when you have a drive to do something that may be something wrong or maybe just something indulgent and you hold back. You bend your will to God's will.
It's an act of restraint.
A conscious act of restraint. And the text gives a specific example here that I found really interesting. It wasn't about resisting some huge dramatic sin. It was about studying, right? It quotes the Talmud about the difference between one who serves God and one who does not serve him. In those days, the standard habit was to review a lesson 100 times. That was the norm.
100 times. That's a lot.
It was what was expected. So someone who did 100 reviews was good. They were righteous. But they weren't necessarily a servant of God. They were just doing what came naturally, what was ingrained in their habits.
They were cruising on autopilot.
Exactly. But the servant of God, that's the one who reviews 101 times.
Just one more time. That's it.
Just one more. Because the first 100 were within the comfort zone. They were habit. But that 101st time, that required breaking the nature. That required going against the grain of, I'm done. That little extra push is iskafia.
So it's about breaking your own patterns.
The text says that this small act of going beyond your nature is what pierces the veil. It draws down the surrounding light of God, a level of divinity that is beyond the normal ordered system.
I think that is so relatable. It's like exercise. The first 10 reps are just warm-up. It's the last rep, the one where your muscles are shaking and you want to quit, that actually changes the body.
Precisely. Iskafia is the discipline of saying no to your own inertia, your own limits. But then there is the second mode, ishapcha.
Transforming. This sounds more proactive.
It is. This is the offensive game. Iskafia is putting the animal in a cage. Ishapcha is putting a saddle on the animal and riding it into battle. It's taking the darkness and flipping it into light.
It's not just suppressing the bad, it's using it for good.
Exactly. The goal isn't just to have a quiet, suppressed animal soul. The goal is to harness its passion, its fire for holiness.
The text uses a wordplay here related to the tabernacle construction. It says the tabernacle was built of acacia wood, in Hebrew, atzei shittim.
And the sages point out that the word shittim is etymologically related to shtuth, which means folly or insanity.
So, the Holy Temple is built out of stupidity. That doesn't sound right.
In a way, yes. The text explains that sin is a form of folly. The Talmud says, no person commits a sin unless a spirit of folly enters him.
A spirit of folly.
Because think about it. Sin separates you from the source of life. It's irrational. It's a temporary insanity where you value a momentary pleasure over an eternal connection.
It's self-sabotage. You're sawing off the branch you're sitting on.
Right. So we have this folly of the animal soul. How do we fix it? Not with logic. Logic is too cold, too weak to fight that kind of passion. You fight fire with fire. You fight unholy insanity with holy insanity. Shuktis dikadusha.
Holy insanity. I like the sound of that.
You have to be crazy for God. You have to be willing to go beyond what makes social or rational sense. When you take that wild, irrational passion that the animal soul has for material things and you flip it, you use that same intense energy to love God, to help a stranger, to do a mitzvah, you are building the tabernacle out of the shittim wood.
That is ishapcha. You're transforming the very energy of folly.
And this explains why the world has to be so dark, so resistant. The text quotes the Zohar. The advantage of light is known from darkness. But it's not just that we appreciate the light more because we've seen the dark.
It's deeper than that.
It means the darkness itself is crushed and pressed and transformed to create a superior kind of light, a light that could never have existed in a pristine, perfect world.
Like olives being crushed into oil. The pressure creates the product.
Exactly. Without the crushing, without the resistance of the shittim wood, you could never generate the holy folly that God desires to see in his world.
This leads us into really deep water. Section 4. The paradox of descent. The text says plainly, and it's a shocking idea, descent is for the sake of ascent.
You read it, Sorakalia. It's a fundamental rule of Hasidic physics. You see it everywhere. You see it when the soul comes down into the body. You see it in the cosmic shattering of the vessels. But the text applies it to something very sensitive, the concept of sin and the Baal Teshuvah, the returnee.
This is a delicate point. Is the text saying sin is good? Like, should I go out and sin so I can have a great recovery story?
No, absolutely not. The text is very clear. Sin is against God's will, and if you sin in order to repent, the system breaks. It doesn't work. But looking back, in hindsight, we can say that the possibility of sin and the existence of the fall was a calculated risk by the Creator.
A calculated risk.
The text uses the word alila, which means a plot or even a libel.
A libel. Like a frame-up. You're being set up.
It quotes Psalms. He is awesome in his plot, Alila, regarding the children of men. The implication is that the soul's descent into a body that is prone to failure, into a world full of temptation, is a setup. God placed us on a slippery slope.
Why? Why risk the rebellion? It seems like a huge gamble.
Because of what happens when we climb back up. The text compares the tzaddik, the perfectly righteous person who has never sinned, with the Baal Teshuvah, the one who fell and returned.
And usually we'd put the tzaddik on the pedestal. Perfect record. No blemishes. He's the star student.
But the Talmud says in a famous passage, in the place where penitents stand, even the completely righteous cannot stand.
Yep.
The returnee reaches a higher peak.
Why? I don't get that. How can the one who failed be higher than the one who never stumbled?
Because of the thirst. The tzaddik walks in the light. Their relationship with God is calm, orderly, intellectual, loving. It's like eating bread. It's satisfying, it's life-sustaining, but it's standard. But the Baal Teshuvah, they have been in the desert. They have been in the dark. They know what it means to be cut off from the source of life. They have felt the pain of separation.
And that creates a desperation. A real raw need.
It creates a jagged, desperate thirst. When they tear themselves away from the darkness to return to God, they do so with a power, a passion, a force of rebound that carries them higher than the tzaddik ever goes.
So it's about the intensity of the return.
Exactly. The tzaddik reveals God's light. But the Baal Teshuvah, through that intense struggle with the very fabric of darkness, reveals God's essence, atzmus.
So the plot, the Alila, was to create a situation where this deep, essential love could be forged in fire.
Exactly. God didn't want obedient robots. He wanted resilient warriors who chose him out of the depths of their own struggle.
Which is the perfect transition to Section 5. The text moves into a military metaphor that I found incredibly empowering. It talks about the army of God, Tzivos Hashem.
It distinguishes between two types of servants in the king's court, ministers and soldiers.
Okay, set the scene for us. Paint the picture.
Imagine a kingdom. You have the ministers, they live in the palace, they wear fine clothes, they stand near the king, they understand the king's policies, his logic, his wisdom, they serve him with intellect and refined emotion.
These represent the souls in the higher worlds. Or maybe the great scholars, the tzaddikim.
Right. They are close to the light, they operate within the system, but then you have the soldiers. Where are the soldiers?
They aren't in the palace. They are on the front lines. They're in the mud, in the trenches.
And most importantly, they are where the king is not. They are in enemy territory. They are dealing with opposition, with darkness, with a world that doesn't recognize their king.
And the text says we are the soldiers.
We in this physical world. And here is the key difference. A minister serves with logic and understanding. A soldier serves with mesiras nefesh, total self-sacrifice.
Beyond reason.
Completely. You don't charge a hill because it makes logical sense for your personal safety. You do it because you are dedicated to the outcome of the war. You do it for the king, regardless of your own survival.
And the text makes a startling point about who is more important in this cosmic war.
The ministers run the country, but the soldiers save the country. The soldiers are the ones capturing the territory. We are the ones expanding the borders of the kingdom into the physical world.
And this leads to my favorite part of the entire stack, the parable of the treasury. This story felt like it was written specifically for me, for us, right now in this generation.
It is the defining parable for our generation. It comes from the Baal Shem Tov, the founder of Chassidism. Imagine a king who has a secret treasury. And these aren't just coins or gold bars. These are ancestral crown jewels, heirlooms passed down for generations.
Priceless, irreplaceable.
So precious that the king keeps them sealed. He never shows them to anyone. Even his top ministers have never seen inside this treasury.
They're too valuable to use. They're for display only, except they're not even displayed.
Exactly. But then the war turns. The enemy surrounds the capital city. The gates are buckling. The very existence of the kingdom is at stake.
It's an existential threat. The whole project is about to collapse.
So what does the king do? He makes a radical decision. He goes into the vault. He takes those priceless, never-before-seen jewels, and he brings them out.
And he doesn't give them to the ministers to strategize with.
No, he grinds them up, or he hands them out as is to the common soldiers on the front lines. He wastes the treasury.
Why? Why would he do that?
Because he says, if I don't give them this resource, this ultimate weapon, we lose the war. And if the kingdom falls, what good is the treasury? The value of the jewels is zero if there's no kingdom. But if the soldiers win, the glory of the kingdom is restored, and that's worth more than any jewel.
That is powerful. How does the text apply this to us? What's the treasury and who are the soldiers?
It explains that we are in the heels of Mashiach, the very end of history's long war. The spiritual darkness today is thicker than ever. The enemy, apathy, cynicism, materialism, confusion is at the gates. Our souls are tired.
So God opened the treasury.
He opened the inner dimensions of Torah, the secrets of Kabbalah and Chasidus. These teachings, these deep, soul-piercing ideas, were hidden for centuries. They were the crown jewels. The great sages of the past, the ministers, didn't study this stuff publicly. It was a secret tradition.
And for us?
For us, we can buy a book of Chasidus for $20. We can listen to this deep dive. We are swimming in the crown jewels. They're everywhere.
And it's not because we are smarter or more righteous than the previous generations?
No. The text says it's because we are fainter. We are in more danger. We need the super-rational power of these secrets just to survive the battle. Logic and basic faith aren't enough to keep a person connected in this crazy world. You need the soul fire. You need the essence.
That reframes everything. I used to think, who am I to study this deep mysticism? I'm not holy enough. But the parable says, you're the soldier who needs the ammo. It's not a reward, it's a survival kit.
And it's a sign of trust. The king trusts the soldiers with his most precious possessions because he knows they are the only ones who can bring the victory.
So we have the mission building the garden, we have the identity, the soldiers, and we have the resources, the treasury. Now let's get practical. Section 6 deals with tactics, because even with all this inspiration, the daily battle is hard. The text addresses a very specific, very annoying struggle: distraction.
Foreign thoughts. Mashavos zeros. The text talks about the struggle of trying to pray or meditate or focus on a holy intent, and suddenly, wham, your brain is flooded with nonsense.
And the text points out something I've noticed a million times. You can be sitting on your couch, spacing out, and your mind is quiet. But the second you decide, I'm going to pray now, or I'm going to learn something deep, suddenly you remember 5 urgent emails, and you wonder if you left the stove on, and a song from 10 years ago gets stuck in your head.
It feels targeted because it is targeted. The text says this is proof of the conflict, it's the animal soul fighting back. The other side doesn't bother distracting you when you're doing nothing of consequence. It attacks when you are threatening its territory.
So the distraction itself is a sign that you're doing something right.
In a way, yes. So how do we deal with it? The text offers 3 perspectives, 3 different strategies. Let's walk through them.
Okay, what's the first one?
Perspective 1 is the test. It's the simplest. Imagine you are trying to work and a heckler is standing behind you shouting insults.
Just trying to annoy me, to get a rise out of me.
Right. If you turn around and start arguing with the heckler, what happens?
I lose focus, I stop working, he wins.
Exactly. So perspective 1 says, these thoughts have no substance. It is just a test of your concentration. Your job is to ignore it. Don't engage.
Okay, simple enough. What's perspective 2?
Perspective 2 is the Baal Shem Tov's approach, which is much deeper. He called it the hidden spark.
The hidden spark.
This view says the distraction isn't random. If a thought about, say, a business deal falls into your head during prayer, it's not an accident. It's a fallen spark of holiness that is trapped in that subject. It has come to you in the middle of your holy moment, begging to be redeemed.
It's asking for a lift, like a spiritual hitchhiker.
Yes. It wants you to elevate it. So the tactic here is to sublimate the desire. You pause and you think, wait, I'm feeling a strong desire for this business deal. What I really want is the divine energy, the blessing that sustains that deal. You route the passion back to God.
That sounds advanced. and maybe a little dangerous.
It is. And the text warns us. This is for the ministers. This is for the tzaddikim. If you try to wrestle with a muddy thought to find the diamond and you aren't strong enough, you just get covered in mud. You start thinking about the bank account and forget the prayer entirely.
Which brings us to perspective 3, the self-inflicted wound. This one hit close to home for me.
The text mentions many waters, which is a classic metaphor for financial worries. It suggests that often these distractions happen because we lack bidashon riel, genuine trust in God.
Ouch. That's a direct hit.
If we truly deeply believe the verse, the blessing of the Lord makes rich, we wouldn't be obsessing over the details of our business during the few minutes we are supposed to be connecting to the source of that blessing. We are thinking about the vessel, the bucket, instead of the source of the water.
So the distraction is a symptom of our own anxiety, our own lack of faith. So what is the tactic for us, the soldiers, the regular people?
The Rebbe suggests the runaway method. It's simple and brutal.
Right away.
Don't analyze the thought. Don't try to elevate it. Don't argue with it. Just aggressively ignore it. The text refers to the attribute of netzach, victory. But netzach also implies stubbornness.
Be obstinate.
Yeah.
Just refuse to engage.
Yes. I am here to do a job. I am not moving.
Yeah.
You use the sheer power of your will to push the thought aside. The text says to act as if you are deaf. Just pretend you don't hear it.
It sounds crude. It's not very elegant.
It is crude. It's trench warfare. But here is the beautiful part. The text says that every time you push that thought away, even if it comes back 10 seconds later, and you push it away again, you are engaging in iskafia. You are subduing the darkness.
And that builds the garden. That simple, repetitive act.
That struggle is the building. The text says this effort, this mental battle, causes the glory of God to be elevated more than any calm, perfect, undisturbed prayer could. You are taking a piece of your chaotic mind and forcing it to bow to the divine. That moment of friction is where the essence of God is revealed.
That is incredibly validating. It means a bad prayer where I fought for focus for 10 minutes might actually be a better prayer than one where I just floated along peacefully.
According to this text, absolutely. The floating prayer is a revelation of light. The fighting prayer is a revelation of essence.
So let's synthesize this. We've gone from the highest heavens, God's essential desire, all the way down to a distracted brain worrying about emails during prayer.
And we've seen that the line connects them directly. We are the 7th generation. We have the mandate to finish the job. We have the treasury of Chassidus to give us strength. And the battlefield is right here, in our own minds and actions.
The text ends with one final provocative thought that really flips the script on how we view ourselves. It talks about the future relationship between the body and the soul.
This is the grand finale. It's a mind-bending idea. Right now, how do we view the relationship? The soul is the battery. The soul is holy, alive, energetic.
Right, and the body is just a hunk of meat that the soul drags around. It's a container. If the soul leaves, the body drops. The soul sustains the body.
Correct. The body is the vehicle, the soul is the driver. That's our current understanding.
But the text predicts that in the Gula, the redemption, and specifically in the resurrection of the dead, the dynamic will flip. The body will sustain the soul.
How is that possible? The body is lower, it's physical, it's temporary.
Because of the work we are doing right now. Because the body was the instrument of Iskafia and his hapsha. The body was the one that got into the trenches. The body was the one that dealt with the shittim wood, the folly, the darkness.
It's the frontline soldier.
Exactly. Because the body did the heavy lifting of revealing God's essence in the darkest place, the body accesses a level of divinity that the soul, which sat comfortably in its spiritual source, never touched.
So the body becomes the senior partner in the relationship. It becomes the conduit for the essence. The stone that the builders rejected becomes the cornerstone. The physical reality, which we thought was an obstacle, becomes the ultimate source of divine pleasure and life.
That leaves us with a lot to think about. I mean, to walk down the street and realize that this physical vessel, this body that gets tired and hungry and distracted, is actually generating an energy that will one day feed the soul.
It changes everything. It makes every physical action, eating, working, walking, a holy endeavor. You aren't just surviving, you're charging the battery for eternity.
And that is the mission of the garden, to make the lowest point the highest point.
Precisely. To reveal the essence in the place of concealment.
This has been a true deep dive. A complex stack of papers, but a simple, powerful message. Thank you for guiding us through it.
It was a pleasure. These are life-changing ideas.
And thank you for listening. You have your orders, soldiers. Go build that garden. We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.